The starting point for this research paper, which I've written together with my brilliant colleague, Dr. Edo, is the Libyan conflict. But instead of seeing it as a conflict that is bounded by the national borders of Libya, we are looking more at the transnational interconnections which are fueling this conflict. And in particular, and to give you an illustration of what this actually means, we are linking the Libyan conflict to Edo State. Now, Edo State is a small state in the south of Nigeria. It's known for its agriculture, for the Benin bronzes, and crucial to our argument is that there is no violent conflict there. There's no armed conflict in this location. It's important to the Libyan context because the Bini people are hugely overrepresented in the people that are moving to and through Libya. About 20% of the sub-Saharan African population is Nigerian, so it will be of no surprise to anyone that they are hugely overrepresented in the people moving to Libya. In fact, no other sub-Saharan African country is as represented as Nigeria is. However, of the 218 million Nigerians, that's an approximate figure, there are about 5 million people from Edo State. That's 2 to 3%. 70% of Nigerians moving to Libya come from Edo State. And as people are moving from Edo State to Libya, they experience journeys that I think we have all seen on our TV screens. There is a huge amount of research conducted on the journey from Agadez, Niger, into Libya, where people have died in the desert, being left just because they couldn't get back on the truck. In the research that we did, we spoke to loads of returnees who saw this happen in front of their very eyes in the journeys that they took into Libya. And now, fundamentally, the structural violence people experience in Edo State and these harrowing journeys that people experience whilst they move to Libya are things that we need to address in their own right? This is violence that we need to address in its own right. However, and this is the fundamental point that my co-author and I make in this paper, it is fundamentally linked to the Libyan conflict because the armed groups and the conflict economy feeds off this movement. So people don't just traverse the country, but they become embedded in this system which exploits them, which makes money from them, and this money directly funds the conflict in Libya. What this looks like in particular is armed groups overseeing detention centres where people are held, where violence, beatings, all kinds of abuse is done to people moving through Libya for the purpose of extorting money, and also a huge amount, and I think we've all seen this documented, of forced sex work, where women and girls are forced to act as prostitutes and that those funds go into the Libyan conflict economy. And so the fundamental point of this paper, and what we're trying to encourage policy makers to think about, is that if the violence in Edo State and the violence along the movement and the violence in Libya is interconnected, then so should our policy and programmatic responses. And so in this paper, what we look at is different policy responses in Nigeria, in Niger, and in Libya, as well as in Europe, because a huge motivator in travelling is an objective of reaching, in particularly, Italy. So this is things such as making sure that there are avenues for travelling which do not go through Libya, which are safer. So making sure that we have more safer legal routes for people to travel to Europe. This also means that there need to be further economic opportunities in Edo State so that people are less likely to become trapped in the human smuggling and trafficking that moves them to Libya. The fundamental point is, of course, to address the violence that people experience along the route and in Edo State, but we also see this as a route to addressing the conflict in Libya through new and creative ways that truly acknowledges how transnational this conflict is. And I think this is what the XCEPT program that this research is part of is fundamentally about. It's about practical solutions. It's about understanding how these social processes such as conflict are inherently transnational. And it is about seeing conflict that cascades across borders.